U.S. President Trump is continuing his attempts to bring about peace between Russia and Ukraine. His newest gambit is among his most ambitious so far, a direct meeting in Hungary with Vladimir Putin. That country is a member of the European Union, or EU, and to get to Hungary, Putin would need to fly into the airspace of multiple EU and NATO-aligned nations. One nation has decided to take a stand. Poland is vowing to intercept Putin's jet and arrest him, should he dare to fly into its territory. Poland says Russia's leader lacks permission to fly, and the entire Hungary meeting between Putin and Trump is now in jeopardy. Just over a month since having to deal with Russian drones entering its airspace, Poland has informed Putin, in no uncertain terms, that its airspace is completely closed to Russia. This doesn't only mean Russia's military aerial assets. Putin himself is banned from traveling over the country, and if he attempts it, he risks interception and arrest under an International Criminal Court, or ICC, warrant. This comes according to Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. Reports from the Kyiv Post indicate Sikorski recently participated in a radio interview, delivering his country's stern warning to Russia's president. Sikorski's comment was both simple and direct. "I am unable to guarantee that an independent Polish court might not order the government to escort such a plane and deliver the suspect to The Hague," Sikorski declared. Here, the Polish foreign minister is playing coy. Just suggesting that Putin might be arrested if he flies over Poland is sufficient to inform Russia's leader that the possibility is significant. It's possible Sikorski is deliberately trying to plant the idea in the collective minds of the courts he mentioned. Or perhaps he has already conferred with those courts and devised a plan for Poland's response, should Putin be foolish enough to attempt flying over its territory. "I believe the Russian side is aware of this," Sikorski added, while discussing Poland transforming itself into a no-fly zone for Putin. "Therefore, if this summit occurs, hopefully including the participation of the victim of aggression, the aircraft will probably take an alternative route," Sikorski adds. This raises another question. If Putin cannot go through Poland, what route could he possibly take to get to Hungary? There really do not seem to be many viable options. Putin certainly won't fly through Ukraine, which shares a direct border with Hungary, as he knows every Ukrainian air defense system and jet would be targeting him the instant he crossed the border. Flying over Slovakia, which likewise borders Hungary, is not an option, since Putin would first have to fly over Poland or Ukraine to reach Slovakia, and then arrive in Hungary from the north. Regarding the southeast, airspace in Romania and Serbia are possibilities. The first is a NATO and EU member, making it highly unlikely it would greenlight Putin's flight. Regarding Serbia, Putin might have been able to fly over that country, if not for the fact that he would need to cross Bulgarian airspace first. That again is an EU and NATO member nation. But wait a minute, only Poland has explicitly said it will arrest Putin if he attempts to use its airspace. What about nations like Romania and Bulgaria? As the Kyiv Post notes, every state besides Poland that Putin might ask to permit his plane safe passage is, like Poland, also an ICC member. This does not automatically mean that Romania and Bulgaria would intercept Putin's plane and arrest him immediately. It does, however, mean they have the choice, and, with Poland taking the lead, it's probable that neither Bulgaria nor Romania would be agreeable to allowing a Russian flyover. Furthermore, similar to Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria are signatories to the Rome Statute, which is the foundation of the entire ICC. This means they are obligated by duty to arrest Putin under the ICC warrant, should the opportunity arise. Conversely, Newsweek reports that the EU has made the interesting choice to let its member states determine what to do regarding Putin's flight. The EU established a bloc-wide prohibition on all Russian aircraft entering EU airspace soon after Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But regarding this possible trip to Hungary, the EU might be viewing it as much from the angle that the trip could result in future peace talks, as it is from the perspective of a Russian violation. Thus, the EU is adopting a hands-off approach. Newsweek reports a European Commission spokesperson has already stated that it falls to individual member states to decide if they will maintain or lift the EU's flight ban on Russian planes. The spokesperson highlighted as well that any meeting that moves forward just and lasting peace in Ukraine is welcome. The meeting in Hungary between Trump and Putin could be interpreted as one of those steps toward peace. Is that sufficient to persuade EU members and ICC signatory nations to grant Putin passage? It is difficult to say. Putin's sole remaining option, and perhaps the safest one for the Russian leader, is taking a lengthy route passing over Turkey and multiple Balkan states to access Hungary from the south. Turkey is neither a Rome Statute signatory nor an EU member, so from Putin's viewpoint it has those 2 points in its favor. Nevertheless, the country is a NATO member, and Russia has been open about its wish to dismantle NATO following Ukraine. Therefore, even Putin's best alternative is scarcely safe. Speculation is rampant regarding how all these other nations could react to Putin flying through their airspace. Sikorski has clarified the Polish position. If Putin flies over Poland, he will be arrested. Russia, predictably, has reacted poorly to Sikorski's remarks. On October 21st, UNN reported Russia's Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, has harshly criticized his Polish counterpart for his statements. Poland, he claims, has committed terrorist acts by refusing to offer Putin safe passage over its territory. And, in typical Russian fashion, Lavrov also alleged that Poland's decision goes even further. Poland, apparently, has justified a terrorist act by inciting Ukraine to attack the Nord Stream pipeline. And now, Poland, Lavrov claims, is preparing to conduct such actions itself against Russia. The hypocrisy here runs deep. Just a few minutes ago we were mentioning how Russia has flown drones into Polish airspace, so it is absurd that Lavrov is now attempting to accuse Poland of committing a terrorist act. In any case, the accusation is irrelevant. Every nation possesses the right to decide who can and cannot enter its airspace. Putin is not exempt from international aviation law, however much Lavrov might wish to pretend he is. Regarding the terrorist act of a possible arrest, Poland would be operating under the authority of the ICC. Simply because Russia fails to recognize that court as legitimate, it doesn't mean Poland is acting improperly by fulfilling its obligation to arrest Putin as a war criminal under an ICC warrant, should Russia's leader enter its territory. In sum, Lavrov is speaking nonsense. We will explore the reasons why in relation to the ICC and what the warrant specifically says momentarily. But first, the question must be asked. What implications does Sikorski's statement have for the future of Putin's meeting with Trump in Hungary? We understand that Hungary itself, which Newsweek points out is also an EU member, though frequently at odds with the broader bloc, has given guarantees that Putin will be secure from arrest if he arrives on the nation's territory. That itself is strange. Hungary is an ICC member as well, which means it shares the same obligation to arrest Putin as Poland and all other ICC members. That said, Hungary is currently in the process of withdrawing from the ICC. Additionally, it has in the past welcomed Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu onto its territory, even though Netanyahu has his own ICC arrest warrant. As one of the ICC's founding members, Hungary is in the midst of changing completely how it handles individuals like Putin. For Russia's leader, that's great, and it is the reason Hungary was selected as the venue for the latest meeting with Trump. Nonetheless, as Poland has made perfectly clear, Putin's problem isn't being in Hungary, it's reaching it. And when the news broke regarding Sikorski's comments, the whole summit between Trump and Putin was uncertain. An official date had not been set, and even a preliminary summit meeting between Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was postponed amidst all the turmoil. There is breaking news regarding the status of this upcoming meeting, published just as we are making this video. We will explain that news later on. For the time being, let's return to the ICC issue, which is the foundation of Sikorski's comments, and has been the stimulus for the arrest threats being aimed at Putin. What exactly has the ICC said regarding Putin? And how would an arrest of Russia's president actually function? What implications would it have for the future? We will begin with the first of those three questions. Located in The Hague in the Netherlands, the ICC is, just as its name suggests, an international court. The ICC's website states that the organization investigates and, where warranted, tries individuals charged with the gravest crimes of concern to the international community: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. Most of the world recognizes and actively engages with the ICC as signatories of the Rome Statute. This United Nations treaty effectively binds every signatory to execute arrests based on any warrants issued by the ICC. Currently, 125 nations are considered state parties to the Rome Statute. Poland is one of those nations. Technically, this means that Poland doesn't truly have a choice about whether or not it arrests Putin. This is a war crime, and Putin bears individual criminal responsibility, both for his direct involvement in these deportations and transportations, and for keeping such poor control over Russia's military that he permitted these crimes to occur. This means Putin cannot claim he was unaware of the crimes he stands accused of. Even if he knew nothing, which is improbable, his failure to control Russia's military would still make him guilty. There really seems to be little doubt that the crimes the ICC accuses Putin and his associates of committing have, in fact, happened. In June, The Guardian released a report on Ukraine's kidnapped children, observing that as many as 35,000 are missing and thought to be held in either Russia or Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine. These children were abducted from care facilities, taken from their parents, or seized because Russian soldiers murdered their parents, the report says. The Guardian also mentions that 366 of Ukraine's kidnapped children have successfully returned to their own country, according to the Ukrainian organization Bring Kids Back. Regarding the rest, Russia has declined multiple calls to return the children it has taken back to Ukraine, and has gone so far as to accuse its enemy of staging a show on the topic of lost children. So, Russia is denying it has done anything wrong. What else is new? Russia's response to the warrant the ICC issued for Putin should likewise not be surprising. Ukraine World examined that reaction in April 2023. It noted that, in addition to the children we have already mentioned, at least 2.5 million Ukrainians had been displaced at that point in Putin's invasion. This only gives more credibility to the ICC's charges. However, it is precisely this credibility that Russia disputes. Its argument is that, being a non-signatory of the Rome Statute, Russia, and therefore its people, cannot be held subject to ICC law. It is definitely true that Russia is not a part of the ICC. It did sign the Rome Statute in 2000, but it never formally ratified its status. In 2016, 2 years after the annexation of Crimea by Putin, Russia formally withdrew from the ICC. Russian propagandists and officials were fast to argue against the ICC's warrant, as Ukraine World highlights. The chair of the Federation Council Committee on Constitutional Legislation, Andrei Klishis, stated the warrants were absurd before he demanded the immediate issuance of arrest warrants for all ICC judges in a completely ridiculous statement. Evidently, irony is not one of Klishis's strong suits. Favorite Putin mouthpiece Dmitry Medvedev threatened Germany specifically with aiming all our means at the nation if it were to arrest Putin. And other Russian propagandists rattled off the standard threats of destruction for any country that crosses Russia or takes any action against Putin. The Russian rule of law will not apply if the ICC succeeds in getting its hands on Putin. Granted, the ICC cannot force Russia to hand Putin over, given Russia's status as a non-signatory. But should Putin enter the territory of an ICC member, Russia will have no say in the situation. Poland has made that evident, and the ICC would have the ability to prosecute Putin for the crimes it alleges he committed if Poland were to arrest Russia's leader. This brings us to how such an arrest would even function. As Newsweek reported in 2023, the ICC itself does not have a police force it can deploy to arrest people. It relies instead on its Rome Statute signatories to perform that work for it, which does not always pan out in the ICC's favor. Newsweek points to the case of the former Sudanese leader Omar al-Bashir, who possesses 2 ICC arrest warrants, but has successfully visited multiple ICC member states without being arrested. An obligation to arrest, it seems, does not equal a guarantee. But in theory, Putin's arrest would be conducted just like any other arrest. A nation's police, probably a federal force or its equivalent, would take Putin into custody and subsequently hand him over to The Hague to stand trial. Admittedly, Poland's version would involve forcing Putin's plane to land if it enters Polish airspace, but Poland is fully within its rights to do so while pursuing an arrest under an ICC warrant. So the question is less about how the arrest would happen and more about what would occur afterward. Several theories exist. Sky News talked with military analyst Sean Bell shortly after the ICC issued its warrant. He noted that the warrant, irrespective of how justified it may be, could make it harder to persuade Putin to come to the negotiating table regarding the Ukraine war. Anything that further isolates Putin's position carries a risk. It risks him doubling down and focusing his determination to continue this conflict, Bell claimed. It does not appear to me that this will help bring the war to an end anytime soon. Some could argue that Bell's words have proven true, as this appears to be the situation that currently exists. Trump desires to meet Putin in Hungary, but Poland states it will not permit that to occur due to the ICC warrant and Russia's recent actions in Poland. How much this obstructs peace negotiations hinges on how seriously you think Putin has been treating these negotiations since they began in early 2025. The BBC likewise speculated that the ICC warrant would have zero impact on Putin's approach to Ukraine back in 2023. That again has turned out to be the case, as Russia has not for 1 second lessened the intensity of its attacks on Ukraine just because the ICC says Putin should be arrested. But let's pretend Putin is arrested. Although Russia has asserted it would retaliate instantly, some believe the Kremlin would in fact do nothing. One of those individuals is Olga Lautman, a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Lautman informed Newsweek, in the hypothetical case that Putin was to be arrested by an ICC member, I don't believe Russia would do anything. If Putin were arrested by an ICC and NATO member on that country's territory, provoking a Russian retaliation, the U.S. could argue that the arrest is illegitimate. It might even claim the arrest is an act of aggression that initiated a war, which could mean the U.S. would not be obliged to come to its NATO ally's defense as it would normally under Article 5 of the NATO Charter. This is all speculative, but the possibility exists that the threat of NATO reprisal for a Russian retaliation is not what it used to be. Let us return to the statement that began all this. Sikorski's claim that Poland will arrest Putin if Russia's president enters its airspace. Previously, we told you there was some breaking news regarding Putin's meeting with Trump in Hungary. The news is, the summit is off. That is according to The Telegraph, which reported on October 21st that Trump has opted against meeting Putin face-to-face in any nation at any time in the immediate future. It is not clear if Poland's threat of an ICC-backed arrest had a role in this decision. The Telegraph reports that the meeting was cancelled following a phone call between US and Russian negotiators that took a negative turn. Maybe that turn included the US declining to pressure its allies to facilitate Putin's safe passage to Hungary. We cannot know for certain, as neither Russia nor the US is disclosing much more. So, Putin will not be traveling to Hungary in the end. Nevertheless, that does not diminish the power of the message Poland has sent to Russia and its leader.